Hello, my stars, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Basil, and today I will be reading Analyst x Analyst by Porcelana Rhoda. I hope I said that correctly on AO3. This is a one-shot. Now, here's the summary. Kaminari Denki has always had his brain running on 2x speed at a minimum, unless he's short-circuited. This was especially so for literature. No one could ever really keep up with him and his love for analyzing texts until he met Midoriya Izuku, who loved analyzing quirks. Or, two bisexuals bond over being huge nerds, even if they are in different fields. Denki discovered his love for reading when he was in the 3rd grade and found his mom's old Hardy Boys and Nancy Drews novels. They were all in English, which he could read better than Japanese kanji, and had horrendous slang from the 1980s, obvious plot twists, and very little character development. Needless to say, Denki loved them. This love quickly extended past these basic mystery novels, though he still thought of them fondly, while his Japanese peers were still reading Sunny Seki's books. Denki was flying through the young adult genre, and then soon enough, literature meant for actual adults. The Hunger Games trilogy was riveting and surprising and enraging all in one. Kokoro was beautiful and complex and thought-provoking. Convenience Store Woman was socially and politically groundbreaking. Of course, every novel was. What good was literature if it didn't inspire or teach? Denki's taste then expanded past novels and into poetry, plays, musicals, and songs. Any form of literature was devoured with his inquisitive eyes and sharp mind. But it wasn't good enough for him. He needed more. So he also started reading essays and articles on the literature, a paper on the agency of Ophelia in the tragedy of Hamlet, Prince of Denmark. He'd read it in an hour and then write his own essay, properly crited and everything. An essay on the symbols and imagery of infantilization in The Yellow Wallpaper. Well, same thing. He'd read it and have his own response and take typed up within a few hours. He did this with pretty much everything he read because he had no one to talk about it. His mom, despite her own love for reading, didn't have the time to listen to his excited and unorganized ramblings about how the word loss is intrinsically entwined with Mary Tyrone's character in the play Long Day's Journey into Night, and his friends, well, he was already too much for them when he joined their discussions about their favorite animes. His words too fast and too loud. They never reacted well when he excitedly ranted about the differences between Shusaku Endo's Silence and the film adaptation of the novel. And that was at least a Japanese novel rather than one in English. No one cared about the thematic choices in literature, or the imagery, or the motifs, or the way words are woven together perfectly by the author to create the best story. Or maybe they did care, and they just didn't care about Denki's interests. But that was fine, because Denki had plenty of blank Google Docs to tell. And then, when that wasn't enough, it was fine, because he created a Tumblr blog, and then he could tell his 43 followers all about the tragic way Inchi Fumiko pulls at the reader's heartstrings in The Waiting Years, a stunning novel that explores responsibility in the family and politics. Sure, it would be nice to discuss this with other people, tangible people who he could see, who he could see face to face and touch and have actual meaningful connections with that wouldn't disappear at the drop of a hat. So Denki just accepted that no one would ever want to hear about his interests. That was okay. He could handle that. But then, he came to UA High School, and everything changed. The thing with change is that it doesn't always happen immediately. It's often slow, like blood spilling in winter snow. It's hesitant, careful, and unnoticeable until attention is called to it from an outside source, like hair growth. It's over time. You are there for every new centimeter, but then someone you haven't seen in a year comes along and comments on it, and you're starkly aware. That's what it's like to go to UA. Obviously, Denki is no longer in his small middle school with students who can't match his energy. That's a quick change. The bullet firing from a gun, not the blood pouring from the wound. No, he's still too high on adrenaline to feel anything. He's taken in by his classmates and their flashy, incredible quirks, and even better personalities. That Aoyama kid, he's literally sparkles and shines in order to stand out, flamboyant in everything he does. Tokuyami is just the perfect amount of dark and edgy to lure in the Edgar Allan Poe fans. No pun intended. Considering The Raven, Bakugou may have the personality of a pour-a-potty in July heat, and his explosive quirk will bring in the attention and news crews. Iida's already a part of a legacy hero family, but he's sure to win the hearts of the next-door neighbor types. Hagakure is the type to sneak up on you with her happy, bubbly sprite. Well, Denki could go on, but then he'd be here all day. The point is, he gets caught up in the pure wonders that is his classmates. So much so that he doesn't immediately see what is right in front of him. And well, the near immediate life or death situation that was the USJ field trip and every other subsequent school event also helped him in overlooking this. His classmate, Midoriya Izuku, is a huge nerd, and he doesn't just mean that. Midoriya watches One Piece, despite the fact that it should be called Long Piece, or that he knows a little too much, trademark, about All Might, or that he likes math of all the perfectly good subjects he could possibly enjoy. Oh no. Denki means that Midoriya is like him. He's like Denki. He's a rambler. He gets excited. His eyes light up with his passion. He waxes poetics about his chosen special interest and dives deep into the analysis of quirks. And all kinds of quirks at that. Not just hero quirks, but generally every kind he sees. Villain quirks, civilian quirks he just randomly bears witness to. Everything. It's all written and kept track of in his many, many notebooks, in the same way that Denki's analysis of literature are marked down on Google Docs in different folders. Midoriya loves quirks, the way Denki loves literature. They both know everything they possibly can about their passion. They want to be surrounded by it, consumed by it, and they want it to be heard. But here's the catch. Denki's sure that Midoriya's friends listen to him. He's friends with the considerate Iida, the sisterly Sue, the kind Uraraka, and the princessly Todoroki. Surely, they were all nice enough to listen to and admire Midoriya's special interest. They weren't like Bakugou, who was nice as long as he tolerated you, and rants about your excitement weren't tolerated. They weren't like Ashido, who didn't want to hear it if she couldn't keep up. It made her feel stupid, and Denki knows what it's like, so he could never do that to her. They weren't like Kirishima, who tried his best, but wore his emotion on his sleeve, so you always knew when he was uninterested. And Denki knows that Kirishima didn't mean to hurt his feelings, but fuck did it hurt when Denki noticed his glazed over eyes. Weren't like Sero, who would without hesitation claim, "Sorry dude, but all of that is going over my head." And while it's not malicious, it still stings. And they definitely weren't like Jiro, who would make aggressive eye contact as she puts in her earbuds. And Denki understands that he's annoying, but that had probably hurt the worst. Or, well, that's what Denki had used to think. And then they were all moved into the dorms, and Denki witnessed firsthand how the so-called Deku Squad treated their leader's love of quirk analysis. It had maybe been a week or so after moving in and settling into their new living space. Everyone had pretty much already memorized who lived on what floor and where all the tastiest snacks were in the kitchen. You know, the essentials. There was even beginning to be a discussion of bi-weekly movie nights and game nights. The activities in question would switch each week. As it were, one night after classes, Denki was hanging out in the common room, as were most of Class 1A. He was lounging on the couch along with the Deku Squad and a few of the Baku Squad, and then a few extras as Bakugou calls them. Midoriya happened to be rambling about what they had learned about Present Mike's quirk in class earlier that day. He was making some fast-paced, educated guesses on his quirk's range and abilities, just from what they'd learned and what they already knew. It was all so fascinating, and Denki found himself captivated by Midoriya's thoughts, process, and interferences. It was all stuff Denki had never considered, and Present Mike was his favorite hero. So if Mike Sensei's quirk had the same... Oh my god. So if Mike Sensei's quirk had the same level of growth and adaptations that any normal child would, especially considering that he has gone through UA's righteousness training regimens, plus anything extra through extracurriculars and internships, then that means we don't actually have a full scoop on what he can do. How can we accurately and safely measure something that was already so destructive from birth? It doesn't take much more sound for a person to just explode than it does to pop eardrums. Around 165 decibels to pop eardrums and 210 decibels to kill a person. That's a 45 decibel difference, and it's totally accomplishable for someone ambitious like Present Mike. There he goes again, Kero. Sue suddenly said, "Are you catching any of this?" Oraka whispered to Todoroki, who mutely shook his head. Denki suddenly felt as cold as a lonely grave in January. "Neither am I," Sero agreed, and on cue. Kirishima put his hand on Bakugou's shoulder and said, "Don't do it, man." But Bakugou was never one to listen to anyone. "Shut the hell up, shitty Deku," he said with a menacing sneer, and Denki felt something within him snap, as Midoriya flushed red. "God, Kaminari-kun," he suddenly recalled the vicious words from middle school. "Do you ever shut up? No one cares." Sorry guys." Midoriya laughed nervously. I'll stop." The bullet from the earlier gunshot, Denki could suddenly feel it in his chest. The adrenaline was gone, but the blood was still pouring, demanding that the wound be treated. And who was he not to give it the proper attention? No! Denki cut in with a boisterous smile, the one he created to set someone perfectly at ease. It'll be useful when he goes pro and has the calm of civilians. "I'm interested. Keep talking." "So would you say that Mike is a long-range hero because of how strong his quirk is? Or do you think it has to do with his combat abilities?" And hell, Midoriya lights the fuck up. His grin goes wide, reaching his shining emerald eyes. His blush lessens, but is still present, a sign that he's happy to have someone regarding his interests in a positive light rather than dismissive. His shoulders relax, and his body language freely opens up, ready to show off his enthusiasm to the world. "You're really interested?" he asks. "Of course I am, dude," Denki answers. "I think it's all really cool that you can just figure stuff out about people like that." Oh, okay," he says. His red blush deepened to his ears, and Denki feels all fluttery inside to know that he's the cause. I have some more on present mic in one of my notebooks. If you want to go to my dorm and talk more about it, I would absolutely be honored." And then, without waiting for anything else, Denki grabs Midoriya's wrists and pulls him up from the couch and out of the room. And Denki, while normally happy-go-lucky and forgiving, can't resist shooting the Deku squad a disappointed look as they pass. He only catches Iida's guilty expression before their backs are turned to those on the couch. Once in the hallway, he slows his pace and moves his hand from Midoriya's wrist to his hand, which he gives a small squeeze. He then grins up at Midoriya and says, "Lead the way." In Midoriya's bedroom, that doubled as an All Might shrine, which Denki actually found endearing, they talked for hours. First, it's about present Mike and his quirk, but soon enough, it develops into their other teachers' quirks. Aizawa-sensei can't erase Hagakuri's quirk because he has to see his opponent, and Hagakure can't be seen. Even then, her quirk is classified as a mutant type, which Aizawa can only nullify the effects of, but not the actual mutation. Then, it's some of the League's quirks. Shigaraki can decay anything, right? But if it isn't instant, and we know that from how he wasn't able to make Aizawa-sensei arm crumble away completely right when he set his fingers on it, so his quirk would be partially useful in research and rescue fields, in which debris needs to be moved quickly, but not too quickly, so that the other pieces of debris aren't disturbed and collapse on survivors. By the end of it, Denki is lying on Midoriya's bed, his feet kicked up against the wall, and his head hanging upside down so he can look at Midoriya, who has pulled up his desk chair to sit next to Denki. His quirk analysis notebooks are scattered all around them, on the beds, the floor, in Midoriya's lap, and one in his hands. And best of all, Midoriya still looked so bright and happy, even if he had finally talked himself out a bit. "Midoriya," Denki says after a moment of silence, "do your friends always act like that when you talk about your analysis?" "Oh," he says, and he looks away. It sends a pang through Denki's heart. "I mean, yeah, but I don't really mind it. I get it, I can be a little much." He fiddles with the notebook in his hand, still not making eye contact with Denki. "Why don't you say anything to them? I'm sure they'd understand if you told them it hurt your feelings." "Why don't you tell Kirishima and the others that it hurts yours too when they dismiss you about your books?" Midoriya quietly answers back, and Denki freezes. "Oh, yeah. Why would you tell someone that you've been hurt when you know that it won't do anything but make them guilty? It's not like they can suddenly become interested." Denki sat up and turned to face Midoriya, who finally turned his gaze back to Denki. "How did you even know about that? I stopped talking about that stuff before the sports festival, I know." He shifts uncomfortably. "I'm pretty aware of everyone around me, always have been, I suppose, but I noticed that you still carry books with you, and it's always a different one, except for your favorite ones, which are always a little torn up." "Well loved," Denki cut in, and then shuts his mouth, embarrassed. "What?" Midoriya's head tilts, like a cute and confused puppy. Well loved. That's how I describe the books I read a lot. When they get all messed up, it's because I'm reading them all the time. And I do that if I really love them, so they're well loved." Midoriya gently sets the hero notebooks on his person onto the bed beside Denki and grabs his hand. He looks down at the hand, clutching his own. It's warm, calloused, scarred and strong. Denki's hand is nothing like it. He runs cold from his quirk, numbing his limbs, especially his fingers. But God, Denki can feel every cell of his that's touching Midoriya. Kaminari-kun! Midoriya says very seriously, and Denki looks up to meet his intense gaze. Midoriya lifts Denki's hand and fully encaptures it with his other hand. I want you to show me your most well-loved books, and I want you to tell me all about them. His heart pounds, his emotions are rioting, all demanding to be heard. He's so pleased and elated and hopeful, and maybe sorrowful and bitter for middle school Denki, who never had this and never knew he would in just a few short years. Okay, he says, but you should call me Denki. Midoriya breaks from his intensity into a fervent grin that takes up his entire face, sending something ephemeral through Denki's stomach. It was like a soft spring zephyr right after a violent storm, carrying the divine peace of a petrior aura. Then you should call me Izuku. And that's how Denki and Izuku ended up in Denki's dorm room until midnight, with Denki digging up his most well-loved novels from under the safe place of his bed, their positions from earlier reversed, with Denki taking his desk chair and Izuku sitting on Denki's bed, though Izuku sat in a much more polite and refined way than Denki had. This is Dante's Inferno. I could go on about its themes and motives, but the most important thing about it, in my opinion, is that not only is it Bible fanfiction, but it's historical fanfiction too. Here we have Hamlet. The best character is Ophelia, but Horatio is cool too. Everyone writes her off as just fridging a woman. But she's so much more than that. I mean, let me tell you about her flower speech. This is a collection of short stories from William Faulkner. He kind of rambles his stories like you do and I do with our analysis. I can't decide if I like Barn Burning or A Rose for Emily from him the best. He went on and on that night. Izuku never once got bored. Their friendship continued to grow after that. Their chat conversations on multiple social media apps were filled to the brim with analysis and casual talks and memes from both sides. In fact, it was one night about a month later that Denki had a realization. He was laying in bed, his blanket pulled up over his head, and his phone right up next to his face. He could practically hear his mother scolding him for it. It was well after midnight, but he and Izuku were still talking on two different apps. One was with their usual analysis, and the other was going over the happenings on campus. Each message he got from Izuku sent a giddy kaleidoscope of butterflies through him. A smile so wide that it graced his face every time. It was like he became the embodiment of summer joy with every word he read from Izuku. He clicked the notification from their casual conversation, and he saw that it was a silly little meme about Ophelia. Image description. Is this a pigeon meme format? The name Ophelia is pasted over the anime character, and insanity is pasted over the butterfly. The anime character points to the butterfly and asks, "Is this really what I deserve after doing literally nothing wrong my entire life?" It's a funny meme. It really is. He recognizes it in the deep recesses of his mind, where he stores an endless amount of meme knowledge. And yes, Izuku has heard plenty of meme rants and analysis by now. But Denki can't focus on that because of his sudden realization. He likes Izuku. He really, really likes Izuku. Like, in the way that Astrophel loves Stella, kind of like. Press F for Sal Phillips Sindley, who wrote the Astrophel and Stella sonnet and songs in order to deal with the fact that his real-life Stella married someone else. In fact, he has for a while now. It was typical of him to realize this through a meme. But, well, it was a meme about Ophelia. One that said she deserved better. Izuku really knew him. He really listened to all of his rants and analysis. And he even actively searched for a meme that he knew Denki would enjoy. This was an unforeseen outcome of befriending Izuku, though not unwelcome. In fact, he blushes, deep and red all over him. He types out a reply to Izuku, one with enough emojis to sound like him, even though he's reeling. And then he sets his phone, screen down, gently against his sheets. Or an Angelica Schuyler situation. Denki's not into the idea of pining forever like that. A fun tidbit about my immortal in relation to Class 1A, Aoyama Yuga has actually quoted the fanfiction more than Jiro or Tokoyami, and Bakugou once even snorted at the reference. No one believes Denki when he talks about it, though. So, what would a character in a romance novel do to impress their love interests and earn their affections? And not win, because you can't win people's love. That's gross. But you should earn it by not being a piece of shit. Denki likes to think that he's not a piece of shit, even if he feels like it sometimes. He sits bolt upright, throwing his blanket off and scrambling for his laptop. He knows exactly what he needs to do. He doesn't sleep at all that night. That morning, he rushes to the library, prints off the fruits of his labor, and staples all 15 pages. He rushes to President Mike's homeroom before the bell rings, and he slams his paper on the man's desk. Mike Sensei just lifts a single eyebrow at him. "I need you to proofread this," Denki says. "It's important, like, super important, crucial even to the future of..." "Okay, listener," President Mike says. "I'll read it when I have the time. I'm a busy hero, you know. But your work is always impressive. I don't know why you would..." But Denki, upon hearing confirmation, is already flying out the door to make it to his homeroom. To make it to his own homeroom. "Thanks, Mike Sensei! I gotta go or else I'll be late for class. Bye!" He can hear the overworked man heave a sigh as he leaves, but he doesn't let himself feel too guilty over it. If it's that big of a deal, then he wouldn't have agreed to proofread it. Still, he doesn't expect to get it back for a few days at least. But to his surprise, Denki gets it back the next day. It's got all kinds of green ink marks suggesting edits to it, and at the very end of the paper, President Mike wrote, "Good job, little listener. That was some of the best work I've seen from you. Midoriya will lose it over this." The compliments and the prediction sent a rush of euphoria through Denki, but he knows it'll be nothing compared to the real thing. So that afternoon, he works on the second draft. And by the second draft, he means that he edits in Mike's suggestions to the first draft and adds from there. He rereads it maybe 1,000,000 times, and by the end of it all, it's 21 pages long, and it's 11 p.m. If Denki was any kind of patient, he would go to bed and give this to Izuku tomorrow. He wasn't, though, and that's why he bolted up and knocked on Iida's door until he opened it. "Kaminari-kun," says Iida in a tone that was supposed to be scolding but was too tired. Denki only felt slightly guilty for waking him up. "It is 11:13 p.m. The dorms had better be on fire for you to..." "Iida-kun!" He cut him off. "Please, I know you have a printer. The library is closed. Please, 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 let me use your printer. Please, please, please." Iida, either from still being half asleep or being unable to comprehend Denki's antics, sighs and opens his door and lets Denki slip through without asking what it's for. He immediately connects his laptop to the printer and hits the print button. "Really, Kaminari-kun, at this time of night, teenagers such as ourselves need at least 8 hours of sleep to be fully functional.
especially teenagers who are going through UA's stringent hero training. And besides that, I do not appreciate being woken up by frantic knocks on my door. I know, and I'm sorry, Iida.
He rips his papers from the printer once it finishes, and then turns to Iida with a smiley grin.
Do you have a stapler by any chance?
Iida sighs and hands it over. He staples the paper quickly and then sets it down on the desk.
Thanks, Iida. I totally owe you one. I'll convince Bakugou to make you that beef stew you really like.
He doesn't wait for a response before bolting out of poor Iida's room and back into his own. He riffs through his desk drawer until he finds his nice green leather report cover. He carefully slides his 21-page paper into the binding and then snaps it shut. He's filled with a sense of triumphancy, and he lets himself savor it for just a moment before smashing it beneath his foot. No need to get too cocky or comfortable. He glances at his phone to check when Izuku last sent him a message. Just 10 minutes ago. Perfect. He doesn't want to interrupt Izuku sleeping after all. He then leaves his room and heads for Izuku's. As he walks, a tremble of fear is born, but he smashes that too. He didn't go through the pain of writing 21 pages and hearing Iida scold him for nothing. But still, once he reaches Izuku's door, he has to take a deep breath to steel his nerves before knocking. It was going to be okay. Better to be rejected quickly, rather than angst and pine for all eternity. Izuku opens the door pretty immediately, and ugh, have his freckles always been this cute? Seriously, what the hell?
Denki!
He says, and he grabs Denki's arm and pulls him in. The contact sends lightning that he's not producing himself up his spine, but disappears when Izuku lets go and they sit on the bed.
What's that in your hand? An essay on the tale of Genji?
Right. The Japanese greatest piece of literature that had been his latest obsession before he started writing his new paper.
No,
he says, and he has to swallow around a ball of nerves in his throat. He runs his hand over his smooth leather of the report cover, and then he extends it to Izuku.
It's, for you. I wrote it for you, I mean.
He never had his words come out so clunky before. Izuku takes it with gentle hands, his eyes curious. He opens it up and starts to read the first page. Denki watches, transfixed as Izuku gasps in shock as he realizes what he is reading, and then turns through the pages to see if the entire essay really is what he's reading. Denki! He breathes, and Denki hopes that he's hearing amazement and happiness in his voice. This is
a quirk analysis.
Denki babbles, unable to handle his crush's speechlessness. Maybe this was a bad idea. What kind of idiot uses romance novels as a basis for reality?
Of you. Your quirk, I mean. I wrote it for you. Yeah, I just notice how you use it like it's All Might's, you know, or you try to use it like it's All Might, like All Might uses his. And I'll give you that. It's really similar to his, but it's also different. Like, your quirk is pretty and glowy, and it makes me feel safe seeing you use it.
Oh God. Did he really just say that when the boy just learned how to not break his bones every 5 seconds? Someone stop him from this word vomit. But alas, no one was there to stop him, and he continues.
Well, now it does. Anyway, now that you have a better handle on it with Full Cowl, which proves my point, All Might's quirk never has gone all glowy like yours, and you have to use yours differently with Full Cowl and shoot style. They're different quirks, and you're different people, you know. It's your quirk, Izuku.
And dear God, Isn't that what Izuku said to Todoroki at the sports festival? Did Kaminari Denki just feed Midoriya Izuku his own goddamn line? It had been decided. Denki is going to drown himself in the bathroom tonight.
I'm sorry, is this too much?
He says, because Izuku is still staring at the essay in shock. Denki can't even see half his face because of that thick green forest hair of his. He wants to run his hands through it so badly, but now was definitely not the time.
It's too much. Definitely too much. I get overexcited. You don't have to read it. Here, I'll take it back.
But Izuku finally moves. He clutches the essay to his chest and glares at Denki. He even hisses.
You can pry this analysis from my cold and broken dead fingers, Kaminari Denki.
He snarls, and then it falls from his face as tears gather and he sniffles.
This is the nicest gift anyone has ever gotten me. Please don't cry.
Denki pleads, even though it's hopeless for someone whose tertiary quirk is the ability to weep forever.
His secondary quirk was obviously his amazing quirk with analysis skills. Denki knows he could have gotten a more than generously well-paid job at a hero agency for his analysis easily if he didn't want to be on the front lines so bad. I'm gonna feel really bad if this makes you cry.
I'm not crying, Izuku says while crying. Denki snorts.
Yeah, you are. I'm making Class 1A's Sunshine Boy cry. Todoroki is going to kill me for this, man.
I won't let him. Izuku sniffles and then wipes away his remaining tears.
I love you too much to let him kill you.
Denki's heart skips a beat.
Yeah?
Then before Izuku has a chance to stumble over his words or take anything back, he continues.
I actually wrote this more than just a regular gift between bros. It's a confession gift.
A sharp intake of breath. What?
Yeah.
He can't look him in the eye.
I like you, Izuku. I want to go out with you. Is that... I was going to confess to you, too.
He shoots up to meet Izuku's gaze.
What? Really?
Izuku is blushing, looking so much like a Christmas decoration, all red and green. It's so quickly becoming Denki's favorite color combination.
I like you too. I would love to be boyfriends with you.
It's not fireworks going off within Denki, but something simpler, something kinder and softer. It's a sincere breeze that lifts the delicate summer dandelion seeds into the air. It's the warm embrace of a fuzzy blanket. It's the delighted relief of a beloved comfort movie. It's the beginning of falling in love with Midoriya Izuku. Denki holds out his hand, and Izuku readily takes it. They squeeze in unison, sending little giggles between the two of them.
So we're dating now?
Izuku asks.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to.
I would love to, he exclaims, and Denki laughs.
That's good, great, amazing.
He squeezes Izuku's hand again.
Hey, I actually have an analysis of your quirk too.
He gasps.
No way, are you serious?
Izuku nods and blushes, that pretty red that brings attention to his cute freckles.
Yeah, I do. It's a lot. In one of my notebooks, every time you talked about your quirk, I would add to it.
He doesn't hesitate.
Can I see it?
Mm-hmm. Izuku gets up, letting go of Denki's hand in the process. Denki mourns the loss for only a second, and then Izuku is back with a yellow notebook.
Here.
He takes it as Izuku settles back down next to Denki, their legs touching together. He opens it up and does the same thing that Izuku had. Quickly flips through the pages to see how much is written. It's a lot more than Denki's 21 pages, maybe well over double, and Denki's quirk is the sole subject in the entire notebook. "Whoa," he says, awed. Izuku, I'm scared of your weekly word count. And here I thought my 660k was impressive. Damn! It's not that big of a deal. Of course it is. This is like breathtaking work. You should take credit, man. I could never do all of this. I get distracted too easily." "You focus on the important things." He looks up at Izuku, whose eyes are fond and loving. Yeah, I guess I do," he says softly. He expects Izuku to blush again, but instead he presses closer to Denki and curls into him. He sets his head down on Denki's shoulder and taps on the notebook, then on Denki's essay. "Let's read them together," he suggests. "As our first date." There are those butterflies again. He swallows. Yeah, that sounds perfect." And it is perfect. Denki and Izuku, who became friends through their ramblings and their analysis in different fields, reading their analysis of each other as their first date. The romantic nerd in Denki is screeching right now. The romantic nerd in Denki is screeching right now. About 5 minutes into Denki reading about his potentiality of utilizing his quirk as an AED shock in emergency situations, Izuku suddenly laughs. "What is it?" He giggles again, then says, "Kachan is going to lose it when he finds out." "Oh god, you're so right. We're going to be the cheesiest in front of him, right? We gotta drive him nuts over this." "Of course we are." Izuku pokes him in the ribs, sending Denki into pearls of ticklish laughter. "We're gonna be the cheesiest." "I like the sound of that." "Me too." The next morning, most of Class 1A is awoken by the sounds of explosions, screams, and taunts. "You shitty nerd! Stop encouraging your little boyfriend like that!" "Aw, Kachan, are you upset that I got my piece of sunshine before you could get yours?" "Me and Shitty Hair have no interest in each other like that, Deku." "Who said anything about our dearest Kirishima, Kachan?" From there, the screaming was incomprehensible, and Denki and Izuku had lots of dodging to do. Terrorizing Bakugou was the best second date ever. And of course, there were many more to come. Alright, my stars, that is the end of this fic. I really hope you enjoyed. I for sure can say that I have enjoyed. I had to cut myself off while recording a couple of times because I couldn't stop the smile stop appearing on my face every time it got to like the parts that I really liked. I think you could kind of hear it in some parts that I was smiling. You could like hear the smile. But yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys have any recommendations, you can put them in the comments below. My socials and Discord server are linked down in the description. And I hope you guys take care of yourself, and I hope to see you in the next ones. Bye, my stars.